Most of us go through different stages in life. Some are highs, some are lows. Some are not so high, not so low. But there are different stages in life that we go through. We want to live in tranquility and peace, but at the same time, we also want a little bit of excitement. I know that with my economic resources, that are limited, of course, I have the bulk of it with one of my sons who's an expert in finance. He works in the financial world, and he manages very conservatively what I have. And then I have a little bit with which I play. But I play risky. I can double my money or I can lose it all. But if I were to lose it all, I still have the resource that my son is managing. But I say, things aren't just that simple. Our patriarch Jacob went through many difficulties in life with his brother, with his uncle. I spoke about this in another opportunity. Finally, he comes to a stage he wants to live in peace. What happens then? The brothers sell one of them into slavery into Egypt. Joseph is sold as a slave by his brothers. Everything changes for him. Here he was living in peace and tranquility. That will no longer be his lot because he loses his most adored son, whom he thinks is dead, but eventually he finds out that he's alive, and he spends the last years of his life in Egypt. He has to abandon the promised land and lives in Egypt. He makes sure that his mortal remains will be buried in Israel, but the last years of his life he spends already in Egypt. In other words, you think that you can already rest, no more difficulties. You want a tranquil life. You have resolved many of your problems. You have gone through from childhood to puberty. You've gone through high school. You went to a university. You learned a profession or whatever you're doing. You work and comes a certain stage in life that you say, enough. Now I want to rest. But that is not the lot. They don't let you rest. You go through, as I say, different stages, different situations, and you think finally you arrived at nirvana. There ain't no such thing. You have to continue facing difficulty situations in life. Do you think faith is constant? Do you believe with the same intensity every day of your life? I think that even the most religious go through periods of difficulty, of doubt, uncertainty. We lived through the most horrible crime that ever happened to the Jewish people, the Holocaust. Where was God during the Holocaust? There are many people who lost their faith completely. Others were reassured in their faith, but many remained with certain doubts. After all, God should have intervened somehow. Well, we have the freedom of action. No matter what, how could God permit that little children die? So our faith is not constant either. So I say to you, don't despair. Don't give up. That's the way life is. There are moments of tremendous excitement. Then comes moments where you feel depressed. Don't think that you're going to remain depressed for the rest of your life. Of course, some people suffer from this. They're already ill. But most of us, who are more or less sane, more or less healthy, go through difficulties. Suddenly there was COVID. There are many things that happen in the world and we have to face them. But yet we recover afterwards and continue on living. So what I'm trying to tell you is that life is not just a linear happening. There are peaks and valleys. There are moments of excitement. There are moments where you feel better, moments when you're hopeful, moments when you feel a little bit of despair. The problem is when you fall into a deep depression. The problem is when you give up. Don't give up. If sometimes your faith feels threatened by certain events, something that happened to you, maybe in the family, maybe with your spouse, well, momentarily you may feel weaker in your faith, but don't give up. Don't give up, because there's always a tomorrow. You will see the sun rise again, and suddenly maybe you will see things from a different perspective. the worst thing you can do is to sit down and say, this is it, the end. I don't want to do anymore. I give up. That is for people who are not alive. And if you are alive, you have to face circumstances in this world.